The ventilation shaft was narrow, dark, and reeked of recycled air and old metal. 4-year-old Silviana crawled through it on hands and knees, her small blue dress torn at the hem, her knees scraped and bleeding purple blood that mixed with the dust. Behind her, somewhere in the palace corridors, she could hear the heavy boots of the guards and the cold, measured voice of her uncle Spencep giving orders. Find the half-breed child. Check every room on the upper levels. She cannot have gone far. Silviana pressed herself against the metal wall of the shaft, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. Her uncle's voice carried through the grates, clearer now, and she heard him speaking to someone else, his tone dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that somehow felt worse than shouting. The problem of the half-breed must be resolved, Commander. Her mother's weakness has contaminated our bloodline. The child is an abomination, and sentiment cannot be allowed to interfere with necessity. And if she is found, my lord? An accident. Children are fragile, are they not? The palace has many dangerous places for a curious little girl. Silviana's breath caught in her throat. She understood enough, even at 4, to know that her uncle wanted her dead. She crawled faster, her small hands scraping against the rough metal, until suddenly the shaft angled downward, and she was sliding, tumbling, crashing through a broken grate into a dim corridor she had never seen before. She hit the floor hard, crying out despite herself, then bit down on her lip to silence the sound. This place was different from the palace she knew. The walls were bare metal, streaked with rust and moisture. Pipes ran along the ceiling, some of them dripping. The lights were dim and flickered. This was the lower levels, the forgotten parts of the palace where the slaves worked. A figure moved in the shadows. Silviana scrambled backward, ready to run, but her legs were shaking too much. The figure stepped into the weak light, and she saw it was a human male, thin and hunched, with one arm held at an awkward angle, as though it had been broken and healed wrong. He was pushing a cleaning cart, a mop in his good hand. His skin was pale, almost gray in the dim light, but his eyes were a startling shade of blue that reminded her of something she could not quite remember. He stared at her for a long moment, then glanced up at the broken grate she had fallen through. His expression did not change, but something flickered in those blue eyes. "You should not be here, little one," he said quietly. His voice was rough, as though he did not use it often. "Please," Silviana whispered. "Please do not tell them. Please." The man set down his mop. He looked at her for another long moment, then up at the corridor behind her. Footsteps echoed in the distance, getting closer. "Children should be protected," he said, more to himself than to her. "Not hunted." He moved quickly despite his awkward arm, pulling open a service panel in the wall. "In here. Do not make a sound. Do not come out until I tell you it is safe." Silviana hesitated for only a second, then crawled into the cramped space behind the panel. The man closed it, and she was in darkness again. But this time she felt strangely safer. She heard him resume his mopping, the rhythmic splash and scrape of it, as the footsteps grew louder and voices filled the corridor. "You, slave! Have you seen a child? A small girl with blue eyes?" "No, my lord, I have seen no one. I am only cleaning." "Search this area, she must be found." The voices moved on. The mopping continued for what felt like hours. Finally, the panel opened, and the man's face appeared, backlit by the dim corridor lights. "They are gone. You should go back before they search here again." Silviana crawled out, her legs cramping from being still for so long. She looked up at the man, really looked at him. His blue eyes were kind, despite everything else about him that spoke of pain and hardship. "What is your name?" she asked. "I have no name. I am nobody." "Everyone has a name." The man smiled, but it was a sad expression. "Once, perhaps, but that was a long time ago. You may call me Tristan, if you must call me something." Silviana reached into the pocket of her torn dress and pulled out a small, worn plush toy. It was a dragon, stitched from blue fabric, with button eyes and embroidered scales. She held it close to her chest. "This is Timothy," she said. "My mother gave him to me. She said he was afraid of the dark, so I must always keep him safe." Tristan's expression changed. Something flickered across his face. Pain or recognition or both. He reached out slowly, as though asking permission, and gently touched the dragon's worn head with one finger. "Your mother," he said quietly. She was a good woman. You knew her? I knew of her. Everyone knew of Princess Sophina. Silviana clutched Timothy tighter. My uncle took all her things away. He said they were reminders of weakness. I hid Timothy, but I am afraid he will find him and take him too. Tristan was quiet for a long moment. Then he held out his good hand. Give him to me. No! Listen to me, little one. If they search your rooms, they will find him. But if I keep him, I can hide him where no one will look. I will keep him safe until you are strong enough to take him back yourself, even if it takes years. I promise you this. Silviana looked at the dragon, then at the man's steady blue eyes. There was something in them that made her trust him, though she could not say what. Slowly, she handed over the precious toy. You will keep him safe? I swear it. Then I will come back for him, when I am strong enough. She turned and ran back the way she had come, climbing up through maintenance shafts until she reached the familiar corridors of the palace. When the guards found her, an hour later, she was in the music room, tears streaming down her face, playing the role of a lost and frightened child. Her uncle Spensip swept her into his arms, all false concern and gentle words, while she buried her face in his shoulder and thought of blue eyes and a promise made in darkness. 18 months passed. Silviana turned 6. Her uncle played his role perfectly, the dutiful guardian mourning his sister while raising her difficult daughter. He never struck her, never raised his voice, but his words cut deeper than any blade. Your mother was beautiful, little star, but her judgment was flawed. Look at your eyes, blue like a human's, not the proper violet of our people. It is a shame, truly, the taint in your blood. It is because of my father, uncle. Your father was nothing, less than nothing, a creature barely worthy of the title guard. Your mother's greatest mistake. But alone in her chambers at night, Silviana practiced the breathing exercises Tristan had taught her during their brief encounters in the palace gardens. He came to tend the weeds, they said, this broken slave with his twisted arm. No one paid attention to him. No one saw how he moved when he thought no one was watching, or how his blue eyes tracked everything. In the garden one afternoon, he showed her a strange movement. Pretend you are pulling a stubborn root, little one. Twist your body like this. Shift your weight. Good again. To anyone watching, it looked like a child imitating the clumsy motions of a crippled slave trying to pull weeds. But Tristan's whispered words told a different story. This is the shadow dance. It is how you move when you are weak and your enemy is strong. You do not fight force with force. You flow like water. You fall like a drunk, but you fall in the right direction. Again. Lower. Your center of gravity must drop. Good. They practiced in stolen moments, never long enough to draw attention. The child stumbling around the garden while the broken slave worked. No one suspected. No one cared. When Silviana turned 7, she discovered a talent that both delighted and disturbed her uncle. In the palace gardens, there were insects that crackled with bioelectricity, small creatures that most people avoided. The gardeners used long poles to knock them from the plants. But Silviana walked right up to them and caught them in her bare hands. The first time she did it, the shock threw her backward and left her gasping. But Tristan had been nearby, weeding a flower bed, and his voice cut through her pain. Pain is just information, little one. Your body is trying to tell you something. Listen to it. The electricity wants to flow. Let it flow through you, not into you. Touch it again. It hurts. Everything hurts at first. Touch it again. She did. This time when the shock hit, she tried to relax instead of tensing. The current ran through her fingers, up her arm, across her shoulders, down her other arm, and into the ground. It still hurt, but it did not throw her backward. Again. Faster this time. Catch it and release it before the current can pool in your muscles. She practiced until she could pluck the electric insects from the leaves as easily as picking berries. Spensip watched from the palace balcony, his violet eyes unreadable. Interesting, he murmured. A mutation, perhaps. Sophina could always sense lies, you know. She called it her gift. I called it her curse. She was too stubborn to use it wisely. At 8 years old, Silviana began formal combat training. Her instructor was a massive warrior named Grender, with blue-gray skin the color of storm clouds and arms like tree trunks. He believed in teaching through pain. "You are weak," he told her, knocking her to the mat for the 10th time. "You are small. You are female. You are half-human filth. You will never be a warrior. You disgrace your mother's memory by even trying." Silviana got up, her nose bleeding purple, her ribs aching. "Again!" He hit her again, and again, and again. That night she found Tristan in the gardens, working by moonlight. She sat down beside him, saying nothing, her body one massive bruise. "He is teaching you wrong," Tristan said quietly, not looking up from the weeds he was pulling. "He is the best warrior in the palace. He is teaching you to fight like he fights. But you are not him. You cannot be him. You must fight like you. I am weak. You are small, that is different. Come here." He showed her how to use an attacker's momentum against them, how to step aside instead of blocking, how to target the soft places, the joints, the nerve clusters, how to turn a stumble into a roll, a fall into a sweep. The shadow dance is not just about avoiding attacks, little one. It is about making your enemy think you are helpless until the moment you strike. Again, show me the third form. She practiced the movements he taught her, awkward at first, but gradually finding the rhythm. The movements looked foolish, uncoordinated, like a drunk trying to dance. But Tristan nodded in approval. "Good. When Grenda tries to hit you next time, do not block. Do the third form. Stumble forward under his guard. There is a pressure point just below his ribs. Hit it with your knuckles as you fall past him. What will happen? He will discover that small does not mean weak." At the next training session, Grender came at her with a heavy punch. Silviana did not try to block or dodge. Instead, she lurched forward in an awkward stumble that looked completely accidental, her small fist jabbing out as she fell past him. Her knuckles hit the exact spot Tristan had shown her. Grender's eyes went wide. He made a strange gasping sound and collapsed, unconscious before he hit the floor. The other trainees stared. The assistant instructor rushed over, checking Grendar's pulse. "What did you do?" Silviana looked up with wide, innocent eyes still sprawled on the floor where she had fallen. "I tripped. I am sorry. Is he well?" They revived Grendar, but he could not explain what had happened. "An unlucky fall," they said. "A freak accident. The child was just clumsy." But Silviana knew the truth. Those foolish-looking movements, those drunken stumbles, were deadly weapons in disguise, and Tristan had given them to her. The hunting trip came when she was 9. It was meant to be a demonstration of nobility, the young princess learning the skills of survival in the wilderness beyond the palace walls. They went to the forest preserve, a carefully managed wilderness where no real danger could threaten the royal party. Or so they thought. Silviana walked ahead of the main group, tracking a small creature whose blue fur shimmered in the filtered sunlight. Behind her, Tristan carried the hunting equipment, his twisted arm making the load look harder to bear than it was. The guards barely noticed him. The ferox wolf came from the shadows like blue lightning. It was not supposed to be in this preserve. Someone had failed in their duties, or perhaps succeeded in a different duty altogether. The creature was massive, all teeth and claws and rippling muscle beneath fur that crackled with bioelectric charge. Silviana had time to turn, to see death rushing at her. The guards were too far away. There was no time to run, no time to scream. Tristan moved. One moment he was the hunched, broken slave, struggling under his burden. The next moment he was something else entirely. He dropped the equipment and straightened to his full height, his twisted arm suddenly moving with fluid precision. He stepped between the child and the beast, his body coiling like a spring. And when the ferox wolf leaped, Tristan's hands caught it midair. There was a sound like a tree branch snapping. The ferox wolf's neck broke, and it fell dead at Silviana's feet. The entire exchange took less than 3 seconds. Then Tristan hunched again, cradling his arm, his face contorted in pain and fear. When the guards arrived, weapons drawn, they found him cowering beside the child, the dead beast between them. "What happened?" the captain demanded. "The creature attacked," one of the guards said, "but it is dead. Did you kill it, child?" Silviana looked at her uncle, who had arrived with the rest of the party. Spencep was staring at Tristan with narrowed eyes. I do not know, Silviana said carefully. It jumped at me. Then it was dead. Perhaps it had a seizure. Perhaps, Spensep said slowly, but his gaze remained fixed on the trembling slave. Tell me, niece, were you frightened? Yes, uncle. Strange, you do not look frightened. You look as though you knew you would be saved. That night, Spensep dismissed the guards and came to Silviana's chambers alone. He sat in the chair by her bed, his fingers steepled, his violet eyes studying her face. I think it is time you knew the truth about your mother, little star. What truth, uncle? The truth about her death. The truth about her shame. You see, Sophina had an affair with a human. Her personal guard, a man named Tristan. She degraded herself with a slave, and the scandal would have destroyed our family. Silviana kept her face carefully neutral. What happened to him? The guard? He vanished. Or perhaps he died. I do not keep track of slaves, child. But Sophina paid for her weakness. The stress of the scandal, the shame of bearing a half-breed child. It was too much. Her heart gave out when you were born. You are saying she died because of me. I am saying she died because she made poor choices, because she loved the wrong thing. Spensip leaned forward. You have her eyes, you know, those blue eyes. Such a shame. Every time I look at you, I see him. When he left, Silviana lay in the darkness, her mind racing. Blue eyes, a guard named Tristan, combat skills that no broken slave should possess, knowledge of her mother's death. The pieces fell together with the weight of inevitability. The next day she found him in the lower gardens. She waited until they were alone, then spoke without preamble. You are my father. Tristan's hands stilled in the soil. He did not turn around. You should not say such things, little one. My uncle told me about the guard, about the affair. You have blue eyes. You knew my mother. You kill like a warrior, not a slave. And you saved me from the ferox wolf without thinking, without fear. Many humans have blue eyes, but only one loves me enough to spend 6 years pretending to be broken. She moved around to face him. You are him, Tristan the guard, my father. He looked at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Yes. Why did you not tell me? Because the moment you know the truth is the moment you become more dangerous to yourself and to me. Your uncle suspects, but he cannot prove anything. If you were to call me father, if you were to show any affection, he would kill us both. He means to kill us anyway. Yes, but not yet. You must survive until you are strong enough to fight back. That means playing the role he expects, the confused child, the weak half-breed, until the day you can take back what is yours. Silviana nodded slowly. Then I will play the role. But one day I will call you father, and everyone will know it. I will hold you to that, daughter. They returned to their roles, the princess and the slave, the child and the broken man, and the dance continued. When Silviana turned 10, Spensep announced a special ceremony. It would be held in the grand hall with all the nobility in attendance. The purpose, he explained with his most benevolent smile, was to give the young princess a new beginning. You have been without a proper father for too long, dear niece. And while I have tried to fill that role, I think it would be better for you to choose a guardian from among the people. Someone to guide you, to protect you, to give you the family structure you need. Choose from whom, uncle? From the slaves, of course. His smile widened. After all, your mother chose poorly when she chose a human. Perhaps you will do better, or perhaps you will prove that her weakness runs true in your blood. Either way, we shall see. The ceremony was designed to humiliate. Spence gathered every capable slave in the palace and paraded them before the assembled nobles. Each one was forced to demonstrate their skills, their strengths, their worthiness to be a father to a princess. There was Melvin, a warrior slave who broke stone with his bare hands. There was Norman, a scholar who could recite the histories of 12 conquered worlds. There was Patty, a craftsman who made weapons so fine they sang when swung through the air. And there was Tristan, hunched and trembling, his twisted arm cradled against his chest. Come forward, nobody, Spensip called, his voice dripping with false kindness. Show the princess what you can offer her. Tristan shuffled forward. He knelt before Silviana, his head bowed, his good hand pressed to the floor. I have nothing to offer, Your Highness, he said in a voice barely above a whisper. I am broken. I am worthless. I am nobody. The nobles laughed. Even the other slaves looked away, embarrassed for him. But as he knelt there, Tristan's fingers moved in the dirt of the floor. He was drawing symbols, letters in the secret code he had taught Silviana over the years. She read them without moving her eyes from his face. Your mother loved you more than life. She loved you more than crown or kingdom. She loved you with everything she was. Silviana felt her throat tighten. Then Tristan reached into his ragged shirt and pulled out something that made her heart stop. It was Timothy, the blue dragon, worn and patched, 6 years of hidden care evident in the careful stitching that held his button eyes in place. Tristan had kept him safe through searches and beatings, through suspicion and danger, keeping a promise made to a 4-year-old child in the darkness. I have only this, Tristan said, holding out the dragon. A toy I found. I thought perhaps the princess would want it. The nobles laughed harder. A toy. This worthless slave was offering a worn-out toy. Silviana looked at the warriors and scholars and craftsmen. She looked at her uncle's expectant face, waiting for her to choose strength, to choose someone he could control or corrupt or kill easily. She looked at the man kneeling before her, offering everything he had in the form of a promise he kept. She pointed directly at him. I choose him. I choose this one. The laughter died. The hall fell into stunned silence. Niece, Spence said carefully, perhaps you do not understand. This is meant to be your guardian, your protector. This man is broken, useless. Choose again. No, uncle, I choose him. This one. Spence's smile was terrible to see. He thought she had destroyed herself. The foolish child had chosen the weakest possible guardian, and now she would have no protection from what was to come. He signed the documents himself, making it official. Tristan was now legally bound to Silviana as her father in the eyes of the law. Your mother would be so disappointed, Spence whispered to her as the nobles filed out, still laughing. You had a chance to redeem her mistake, and instead you doubled down on weakness. The opinions of the dead do not matter, uncle, Silviana said coldly. Only the living. That night, alone in her chambers with the man now legally designated as her father, Silviana watched as Tristan stood to his full height for the first time in 6 years. He stretched his arms, rolling his shoulders, working the stiffness out of muscles held in unnatural positions for too long. His twisted arm straightened, the joint popping as it returned to its proper alignment. Your arm was never broken, Silviana said. No, I dislocated the shoulder and kept it that way, using pressure points to numb the pain. The arm was useless, but it could be returned to function when needed. He flexed his fingers, testing the strength. I could have fixed it at any time, but the role required sacrifice. Why did you not escape? 6 years you could have run. And left you alone with him? No, daughter. I made a promise to your mother. She died to give you life. I would not dishonor that by running. He moved to the window, looking out over the palace grounds. We have perhaps a year before Spencep makes his move. Now that I am legally your father, he will try to eliminate us both in one stroke. We must be ready. Ready for what? For war, daughter. A quiet war, fought in shadows and politics and poison. He has been training you to be weak. I have been training you to survive. Now we must train you to win. He turned to face her. Your uncle has been adding small doses of poison to your food since you were 6. I have been adding the antidotes. Your immune system is now resistant to most common toxins. Silviana stared at him. You poisoned me. I immunized you. There is a difference. Spencep will try to kill you with poison before he resorts to open violence. When he does, you will survive, and he will be confused and frightened. Frightened enemies make mistakes. He walked to a panel in the wall and pressed it in a specific sequence. It swung open, revealing a hidden cache of weapons. Knives, small blades, a collapsible bow. We start tomorrow. Real training. No more garden games. You will learn to fight with every weapon. You will learn to read people, to manipulate, to lie convincingly. You will learn to rule. And you will teach me this? I was the captain of your mother's guard before they made me nobody. I know combat, strategy, and politics. Everything I am, I will give to you. He smiled, and it was not the sad smile of the broken slave, but the fierce grin of a warrior. Your uncle thinks he has won by letting you choose me. He has no idea what he has done. The next morning, Spensip came to test his new suspicions. He found Tristan in Silviana's study, standing by the window. The regent carried an electro whip, a weapon designed to cause pain without leaving permanent marks. I want to see if the princess chose well, Spensip said pleasantly. Defend yourself, slave. The whip cracked. Tristan stumbled aside in his usual clumsy manner, the strike missing him by inches. Spensip frowned and struck again. Again Tristan fell away from it, all awkward limbs and confusion. You are quicker than you look, Spensip observed. He drew a combat blade, a wicked curve of metal. Let us try this instead. The blade lashed out faster than the whip, and this time Tristan was not quite quick enough. The edge caught his side, drawing blood. He fell, gasping. Father! Silviana entered the room at a run. Uncle, what are you doing? Testing. If this creature is to be your guardian, he must be able to protect you. He is injured. Stop this. No, little star. I do not think I will. Spensip raised the blade again. Silviana moved without thinking. The shadow dance took over, her body flowing through the forms Tristan had taught her. She was under Spensip's guard in an instant, her small fist driving into the nerve cluster under his ribs. As he gasped and reflexively bent forward, she grabbed his wrist and twisted, using his own momentum to send him crashing to the floor. A knee to his shoulder blade, a pressure point strike to the back of his neck, and suddenly the mighty regent was face down on the marble. Unable to move, the blade clattering from his nerveless fingers. The whole exchange took perhaps 4 seconds. Silviana stepped back, breathing hard. Spensip lay still for a moment, then slowly pushed himself up. He looked at her with new eyes, seeing her clearly for the first time. Well, he said softly, the little star has teeth. He stood, smoothed his robes, and smiled. But this smile was different. This was the smile of a player who had just realized the game was more interesting than he had thought. I see I have underestimated you, niece. That will not happen again. He nodded to Tristan, who was still on the floor, bleeding. Tend to your father and practice well. You will need your skills. He left. Silviana helped Tristan to his feet, pressing cloth to his wound. That was foolish, Tristan said. Now he knows you are dangerous. He was going to kill you. Better he kill me than he kill us both because you revealed your skills too soon. But he smiled as he said it, though I will admit, the look on his face was worth it. A year passed. Silviana trained in secret, her skills growing sharper. Tristan taught her everything he knew, knife work, bow shooting, staff fighting, and always, always the shadow dance, the art of looking weak while being deadly. 2 days before her 11th birthday, an invitation arrived, a grand ball to celebrate her coming of age. All the nobility would attend. There would be music, dancing, feasting. Tristan held the invitation up to the light, revealing hidden watermarks in the paper. Ancient symbols only visible under specific conditions. The symbols meant endings, termination of bloodlines, final resolutions. It is a trap, he said simply. Of course it is. What do? We prepare, we attend, and we end this, one way or another. They spent the night preparing. Silviana's dress was fitted with hidden pockets for knives. Her hairpins were sharpened to points. Tristan wore simple servant's clothes, but beneath them was lightweight armor made from salvaged materials. Remember, he told her, if something happens to me, run. Do not try to fight your way out. Run, hide, and wait. You are not ready to face him alone. I will not leave you. You will do as I command, daughter. I did not survive 6 years of slavery to watch you die in a foolish gesture of loyalty. But before they could argue further, there was a sound at the window, a scraping, like claws on stone. Tristan moved instantly, putting himself between Silviana and the window. The glass shattered inward, and a figure tumbled through, rolling to its feet with a knife already drawn. The assassin was called Rulli, a professional killer known throughout the system. He grinned at Silviana, showing filed teeth. Nothing personal, princess. Just business. Your uncle pays well. My birthday is not until tomorrow. Silviana said calmly. You are early. Better to strike when you are not expecting it. He advanced, the knife weaving patterns in the air. I will make it quick. Cleaner that way. Your grip is wrong, Silviana observed. The blade is at the wrong angle. If you thrust like that, it will glance off bone instead of penetrating. Ruli paused, confused. What? Your knife grip? It is inefficient. If you are going to kill someone, you should at least do it properly. The assassin stared at her, then laughed. You are a strange child. I almost regret this. He never saw Tristan move. One moment the servant was standing behind the princess. The next moment he was beside Ruli, and the assassin was collapsing, his own knife buried in his chest, placed there with surgical precision. You were not alone, Tristan said, not as a question, but as a statement. He moved to the window as two more shapes appeared, climbing up from below. He dispatched them with brutal efficiency, their bodies falling into the courtyard below. Silviana watched calmly. This was not the first time Tristan had killed to protect her, though it was the first time she had seen it so clearly. 3 assassins, she said. Uncle is getting serious. Yes. Tristan cleaned the blade and handed it to her. Keep this. We may need it soon. He moved to the fallen Ruli and searched the body, finding a sealed message cylinder. He broke it open and read the contents, his expression darkening. It is as I thought. Spensep plans to move against you tomorrow. The ball is the stage. He will accuse you publicly, stripping your titles and declaring you unfit to inherit. Then, in the chaos, an accident will occur. Can we run? Where? He controls the palace, the guards, the starships. No, we cannot run. We must fight, but not in the way he expects. He reached into his shirt and pulled out a small medallion on a chain. It was made of some dark metal that seemed to drink in the light. Silviana had never seen it before. Your mother gave this to me the night she died. She knew Spence had poisoned her. She knew she was dying, and she knew she could not protect you directly. He opened the medallion, revealing a tiny quantum storage device. This contains her last testimony, her confession, proof that Spensep murdered her. But it is locked with genetic encryption. It will only open for your blood, and only in the throne room during an official ceremony. She planned for this? She knew her brother. She knew what he would do. She died to give you this weapon, daughter. Tomorrow you will use it. What about the law? I am not yet 11. Killing the regent before my birthday would be treason. Tristan smiled grimly. Then we survive until midnight. The moment you turn 11, you become of legal age. At that moment, executing justice on your mother's murderer becomes your right as heir. We just have to stay alive long enough to reach that moment. They barricaded the room and waited for dawn. Silviana held Timothy close. The worn dragon, a reminder of promises kept and battles yet to come. The ball began at sunset. The grand hall was filled with nobility from across the empire, all dressed in their finest. Musicians played. Servants moved through the crowd with trays of delicacies. Silviana entered in a dress of deep blue, her hair arranged in elaborate braids, looking every inch the princess. Tristan followed behind her, still playing the role of the broken servant, though those who looked closely might have seen the way his eyes tracked everything, measuring threats and distances. Spensep waited on the dais, resplendent in regent's robes. When he saw Silviana, he smiled and opened his arms in welcome. My dear niece, come, let us celebrate your coming of age. Silviana walked forward, her head high. The nobles parted before her, whispering. She could feel their eyes on her, judging, weighing. Half-breed, they whispered, contaminated, weak. She reached the dais and stopped. Spensep gestured for silence. Friends, nobles, honored guests, we are here tonight to celebrate my niece's 11th birthday. But before we begin the festivities, there is a matter we must address. His voice carried through the hall, amplified by the acoustics. A matter of truth, of bloodline, of legitimacy. He gestured, and servants brought forward a display panel. Images appeared, floating in the air above the crowd. Genetic scans, medical records, documentation. Silviana is not of pure blood, Spensep announced. Her mother, my beloved sister Sofina, was seduced by a human slave. This child before you is the product of that union. Her genetic code is corrupted. She carries the markers of both species, but belongs to neither. Gasps and mutters ran through the crowd. Some looked shocked, others looked satisfied, as though suspicions were confirmed. Furthermore, Spence continued, she has proven herself unworthy of rule. She chose as her guardian this broken slave, rejecting all the worthy candidates presented to her. She has shown poor judgment, just as her mother did. He turned to Tristan. You, slave, confess to your crime. Confess that you seduced Princess Sophina. Confess that you are the father of this half-breed child. Tristan stood silent for a long moment. Then he straightened, and his voice when he spoke was not the weak whisper of a slave, but the clear, commanding tone of a warrior. Yes, the word rang through the hall. Nobles stared. Yes, Tristan repeated. I love Sophina. I am Silviana's father, and I am not ashamed of either truth. Spencep's smile widened. There, you heard it. This slave admits to contaminating the royal bloodline. The law is clear. The child cannot inherit. The law is also clear, Silviana said quietly, that murder of a royal supersedes all questions of legitimacy. She pulled out the medallion. In one smooth motion, she pressed her thumb to a small blade on the side, drawing blood. The purple drops fell onto the quantum lock, and the device flared to life. A hologram appeared above the medallion, life-sized and perfect. It was Sophina, the late princess, recorded just before her death. Her face was pale, her breathing labored, but her eyes were fierce. My people, the recording began. I am dying. My brother Spencep has poisoned me. I knew of his jealousy, his ambition, but I did not act soon enough to stop him. I die knowing I have failed in my duty to protect you from him. The hall erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted denials and accusations. Guards moved forward uncertain. I loved a human, Sophina continued. His name was Tristan. He was my guard, my protector, and eventually my heart. Our daughter Silviana is the result of that love. I do not regret her. I would drink Spencep's poison 1,000 times over if it meant she could live. Tears ran down Silviana's face, but her hand was steady, holding the medallion high. I leave her in Tristan's care, Sophina said. He is the only one I trust to protect her from my brother. If you are seeing this, my daughter, it means you have survived. It means you are strong enough to face what comes next. Take back what is yours. Rule with wisdom. Rule with compassion. Rule with the strength of both your peoples. The hologram faded. Silence fell, broken only by Spencep's harsh breathing. Lies, he said. Fabrications. The recording is false. The quantum lock cannot be faked, Tristan said. You know this, Spencep. It requires living blood from a direct heir, keyed to the specific genetic markers. If this recording was false, it would not play. It does not matter. Spencep's composure cracked. I am the regent. I hold the power here. He raised his hand, and hidden weapons activated throughout the hall. Energy turrets emerged from the walls, targeting the crowd. Panic erupted. You have two choices, Spencep shouted over the chaos. Bow to me and live, or die with this half-breed abomination. Silviana moved. She had been expecting this, had planned for it. Her hands went to her hair, pulling out the sharpened pins and throwing them with precision into the control panels she had identified earlier. The turrets sparked and went dead, their targeting systems disabled. Guards rushed forward, but Tristan was already moving, his body a blur of controlled violence. He fought with economy, every strike perfectly placed, dropping opponents with minimum effort. Years of pretending to be broken fell away, revealing the elite warrior underneath. Silviana ducked under a sword swing and rolled, coming up with a knife in each hand. She engaged the guards using the shadow dance, flowing around their attacks, looking clumsy but deadly. Every stumble ended with a guard falling, clutching a wound or gasping for air as pressure points were struck. Father and daughter fought back to back, moving through the chaos toward the throne. Spence backed away, his confidence crumbling as he realized the trap had sprung on him instead. You cannot win, he screamed. Even if you kill me, the nobles will never accept you. The nobles will accept whoever holds power, Tristan said coldly. That is how it has always been. Silviana reached the throne room's main console, where Spencep had activated the weapons. She placed her hands on it and focused. The electric insects in the garden had taught her to channel bioelectricity. The palace systems ran on similar energy, just magnified. She could feel the current humming through the controls. She pushed. The energy surged under her command, overriding Spencip's lockouts. The turrets that still functioned suddenly turned, targeting the regent's personal guard instead of the crowd. The shields that had protected Spencip from attack flickered and died. Spencip drew his personal blade and charged at Silviana. She met him with the forms Tristan had taught her, using his own momentum to send him sprawling. He came at her again, and again she evaded, struck, danced away. He was stronger, faster, more experienced. But she had been taught by the best, and she had something he would never understand. She had a reason to fight beyond power. She fought for her mother's memory, for her father's sacrifice, for herself. Spencip swung his blade in a vicious arc. Silviana ducked under it and drove her fist into the nerve cluster under his ribs, the same move she had used years ago. As he gasped and bent forward, she swept his legs and rode him to the ground, her knife at his throat. "You never knew my mother," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "You thought you did, but you never saw her. You never understood her. She hated those formal shoes you made her wear. She went barefoot whenever she could, but you never noticed." "You are going to kill me then? Your own uncle?" "No, the law will kill you. The law you tried to use against me." The council of elders, who had been watching from their protected seats, finally stood. The eldest, a woman named Natalia with skin like weathered stone, stepped forward. "Lord Regent Spencip, you stand accused of murdering Princess Sofina. The evidence is clear. The law is clear. You are guilty of regicide. I am the regent. You cannot do this. You were the regent. Now you are a murderer." Natalia looked to Silviana. "Princess, as the heir and victim of this crime, you have the right to name the executioner." Silviana looked at Tristan. He met her eyes and nodded slightly. "I name Tristan," she said. "Captain of the guard, protector of the blood, my father." Spencip laughed, a bitter broken sound. "The slave will execute me? The irony, the final humiliation." Tristan walked forward. In his hand was the slave collar he had worn for 6 years, the symbol of his bondage. He placed it around Spencip's neck and locked it. "For 6 years I wore this," Tristan said. "I was nobody. I was less than nothing. But I was free in ways you never understood. I had purpose. I had love. I protected something precious." "What did you have, Spencip? Power? It slips through your fingers like water. You have nothing. You are nothing." He placed his hands on either side of Spencip's head. The former regent tried to speak, to plead, to threaten, but Tristan's grip was inexorable. "For Sofina," he said quietly, "for the love you could never understand." There was a sharp crack. Spencip's body went limp. Tristan let it fall to the floor and stepped back. The hall was silent. Then slowly the nobles began to kneel. First one, then another, then all of them, acknowledging the new order. Silviana stood on the dais looking out at them. She was 10 years old, covered in purple blood, her dress torn, her carefully arranged hair falling around her face. She looked like a wild thing, dangerous and strange. "The empire has changed," she said, and her voice carried through the hall without shouting. "Slavery is abolished. All beings within our borders are free. Any who disagree may leave. Now, the doors are open." No one moved. "Good. Then we understand each other. My mother died because my uncle valued power over life. I will not make that mistake. We will be better. We must be better." She looked at Tristan. "I will need advisors, protectors, teachers. Any who wish to help build a new empire, step forward." The council of elders stood first, then the warriors who had fought beside them against Spencip's guards. Then, surprisingly, even some of Spencip's former allies, seeing which way the wind was blowing. Silviana watched them all, her blue eyes missing nothing. She had learned from the best after all. She knew how to see past lies, how to find truth in shadows. 5 years passed. The empire transformed slowly, painfully, but inexorably. Old laws fell, new ones rose. The freed slaves became citizens, workers, soldiers, teachers. Some of the nobles left, unable to accept the changes. Others stayed and adapted. Silviana grew into her role. At 16, she was no longer the frightened child hiding in ventilation shafts. She was Empress Silviana, and her word was law. But she ruled wisely, listening to advisors, weighing options, always remembering the lessons learned in gardens and shadowed corridors. She still went barefoot whenever possible, a habit that scandalized the older nobles and delighted the common people. When ambassadors came to petition her, they found her sitting on the throne without shoes, her feet tucked under her, looking relaxed but alert. Tristan stood beside the throne, not behind it. He wore the uniform of the First Shield, the emperor's personal protector and chief military advisor. His arm, no longer twisted, moved with fluid grace. His blue eyes were still watchful, still protecting, but now he stood tall and proud. They ran the empire together, father and daughter, human and hybrid. They argued sometimes in private, over policy and strategy. They laughed often, usually in the workshop Silviana had set up where they repaired old machines and built new ones. She had inherited her mother's gift for sensing truth and her father's gift for strategy. Combined, they were formidable. One day an ambassador arrived from Earth, the human homeworld. She was a woman named Rosalie, with dark skin and kind eyes, carrying proposals for trade agreements and cultural exchange. Silviana received her in the informal receiving room, sitting cross-legged on cushions, examining the proposals with interest. "Your empire has changed remarkably," Rosalie said. "The reports we receive speak of a renaissance, freedom, innovation. It is unexpected." "My mother believed in the potential of all beings," Silviana said. "I simply tried to make her vision real. With help, of course." She glanced at Tristan, who was reviewing security protocols with the captain of the guard. The ambassador's eyes followed her gaze. "The First Shield is your father, I understand. A human." "Yes, does that bother you?" "Not at all. I find it hopeful." Rosalie smiled. "It suggests that humans and your people can work together, build together, perhaps even love together." "Perhaps," Silviana agreed. She studied the ambassador thoughtfully. "You are not married." "I am not. My work keeps me traveling. It is hard to maintain relationships. My father has the same problem. He has spent the last 16 years either pretending to be broken or rebuilding an empire. I think he might benefit from someone who understands dedication to duty, but also knows how to live." She stood stretching. "Stay for dinner. We eat informally in the evenings, just family and close advisors. You would be welcome." Rosalie's smile widened. "I would be honored." That evening, Silviana watched from across the table as her father and the Earth ambassador talked about their respective worlds, about politics and strategy, and small, unimportant things. She saw the way Tristan's expression softened when Rosalie laughed. She saw the way the ambassador's eyes lingered on him when she thought no one was watching. After dinner, Silviana found her father on the balcony, looking out over the city. Lights sparkled in the darkness, the city alive with activity even at night. "You should give her a chance," Silviana said, joining him at the railing. "Give who a chance? Do not play ignorant." "The ambassador, Rosalie," Tristan sighed. "I am too old for such things." "You are barely 40. You pretended to be broken and beaten for 6 years to protect me. You spent another 5 rebuilding an empire. Perhaps it is time you thought about yourself. My duty is to you. Your duty is to be happy, father. Mother would want that. I want that." She took his hand. "You have given me everything. Let me give you this. Permission to live your own life." He looked at her for a long moment, then pulled her into a hug. "When did you become so wise?" "I had an excellent teacher." They stood together on the balcony, watching the city lights. In the distance, a storm was building, dark clouds gathering on the horizon. Lightning flickered within them, beautiful and dangerous. "A storm is coming," Tristan observed. "Let it come. We have weathered worse. Together. Always." In the main museum of the capital city, in a place of honor, there stood a glass case. Inside was a worn plush dragon with button eyes and carefully stitched patches. A brass plaque beneath it read, "The toy that changed an empire." He was afraid of the dark, and we kept him safe. Children came to see it, pressing their faces to the glass, asking their parents about the small blue dragon. The parents told them the story of the princess who hid in shadows and the slave who pretended to be broken. They told them about promises kept and loyalty rewarded. They told them about love stronger than law and courage deeper than blood. And sometimes, late at night when the museum was closed, a woman with blue eyes and bare feet would come to stand before the case. She would place her hand on the glass and remember being 4 years old, alone in the darkness, trusting a stranger because he had kind eyes. "Thank you, Timothy," she would whisper. "You were afraid of the dark, but you were never alone." Then she would return to the palace, where her father waited, where her empire needed her, where she belonged. The frightened child was gone. The broken slave was gone. In their place stood an empress and her shield, unbreakable, unconquerable, and finally free. The storm broke over the city that night, rain washing the streets clean. Lightning danced between the towers, illuminating the palace in stuttering flashes. Inside, safe from the weather, Silviana worked late in her study, reviewing trade proposals. Tristan sat nearby, sharpening a blade with methodical strokes. Rosalie had been invited to stay as the Earth representative to the imperial court, and she worked at another desk, comparing legal codes. It was quiet, peaceful, normal. Silviana looked up from her work and watched the other two for a moment. Her father, still vigilant even in safety. The ambassador, dedicated to building bridges between worlds. Both of them here because she had made space for them, because she had learned that strength was not just about survival, but about creating something worth living for. "We should sleep," Tristan said, noticing her watching. "Tomorrow will be busy." "Tomorrow is always busy, but that is all right. We chose this." "No, daughter, you were born to this. I chose to protect you, but you were always meant to be here. I was meant to be dead in a ventilation shaft when I was 4. I was meant to be poisoned or assassinated or broken by Spencep's manipulations. The only reason I am here is because a stranger decided that children should be protected instead of hunted." She stood and crossed to him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "I am here because of you. Never forget that." He covered her hand with his own. "Your mother saw something in me that I did not see in myself. She gave me purpose. You gave me a reason to become what I needed to be. I am the one who should thank you. Then we are even." Rosalie watched this exchange with a soft smile. "You know," she said, "on Earth we have stories about this. The hidden prince, the loyal protector, the triumph of good over evil. But they are usually just stories. To see it happen in reality is remarkable." "Reality is messier than stories," Silviana said. "Stories end at the triumph. Reality continues. There are trade disputes to settle, agricultural reforms to implement, old grudges to smooth over. The work never ends. But you do not seem to mind." "No, I do not mind. This is what I was meant to do. Not because of bloodline or destiny or any grand design, but because I am here, and I am capable, and the work needs doing." She looked out the window at the storm. "Mother used to say that lightning and thunder were just the universe reminding us that even in darkness, there is still energy, still power, still life. She said we should not fear storms, but respect them and learn from them." She sounds like she was a wise woman. She was. Uncle tried to make me think she was weak, that her love for my father was a flaw. But I think it was her greatest strength. She chose love knowing the consequences. She faced death knowing I might survive. That is not weakness. That is courage beyond anything I have ever seen. The lightning flashed again, closer now. The thunder followed almost immediately, a deep rumble that shook the windows. "I should check the storm shutters," Tristan said, but Silviana stopped him. "Let it be. The palace has weathered 1,000 storms. It will weather this one. Come, let us have tea and pretend for one evening that we are simply a family, not an empire." They gathered in the smaller sitting room, away from the formal spaces and political necessity. Tristan made tea the human way, letting the herbs steep in hot water. Rosalie told stories about Earth, about oceans and forests and cities that stretched to the horizon. Silviana listened, imagining a world she had never seen, the homeworld of half her heritage. "Would you want to visit Earth?" Rosalie asked. Perhaps someday, when things are more stable here, when I can afford to be away. Silviana sipped her tea. But I am needed here now. This is my home. These are my people, both those who are like my mother's kind and those who are like my father's kind. I cannot abandon them. Spoken like a true ruler, Rosalie said. But remember, even rulers need to rest sometimes. Need to see new things, experience new places. You are 16. You should have the chance to be young. I was never young, Silviana said without bitterness. I went from child to survivor to ruler. I skipped the part in between. Then perhaps it is time to reclaim it. They talked late into the night, until the storm passed and the sky cleared, revealing stars that glittered like scattered diamonds. When Silviana finally retired to her chambers, she found Timothy sitting on her bed where she had left him that morning. She picked up the worn dragon and held him close for a moment, remembering. "We did it," she whispered to the toy. "We survived. We won. You can stop being afraid of the dark now. We have made our own light." She set him back on the shelf beside her bed and climbed under the covers. For the first time in 12 years, she fell asleep without wondering if she would wake up in the morning. The danger was not gone, would never be truly gone. But she was ready for it. She was no longer the frightened child in the darkness. She was the light itself. Morning came with sunlight streaming through the windows and the sound of the city waking below. Silviana rose, dressed in simple clothes, and went to the training yard. Some habits were too ingrained to break, and besides, she enjoyed the early morning sessions with her father. Tristan was already there, working through forms with a practice sword. He moved with the easy grace of someone who had spent a lifetime in combat, each motion precise and economical. He did not stop when Silviana entered, but acknowledged her with a slight nod. She picked up her own practice sword and joined him. They moved through the forms together, a dance they had performed countless times. No words were needed. The movements spoke for themselves, a conversation in motion. When they finished, both were breathing hard but smiling. "You are getting faster," Tristan observed. "You are getting older," Silviana countered. "Ouch, wounded by my own daughter." They laughed, and it was easy, comfortable. The years of pretending, of careful distance, were gone. They could simply be themselves now. "Ambassador Rosalie asked me to show her the old city today," Tristan said casually. "I thought I might take her to the market district, show her how the common people live." "That sounds suspiciously like a date." "It is a cultural exchange." "Of course it is," Silviana grinned. "Wear the blue tunic. It brings out your eyes." "I am not taking fashion advice from a 16-year-old who goes barefoot to diplomatic meetings." "Your loss." They walked back to the palace together, still trading friendly barbs. Guards saluted as they passed. Servants bowed. Everyone they encountered showed respect, but also something else, genuine affection. The empire had changed, and the people knew who was responsible. In the throne room, a line of petitioners already waited. Silviana sighed but took her place on the throne. This was the less glamorous part of ruling, listening to disputes, making judgments, solving problems. But it was necessary, and she had learned to find satisfaction in it. The first petitioner was a farmer whose land had been damaged by a neighboring factory. The second was a merchant protesting a new trade regulation. The third was a mother asking for help finding her missing son. Silviana listened to each one, asked questions, made notes. Some problems she could solve immediately. Others required investigation, consultation, time. But she gave each petitioner her full attention, making them feel heard and valued. By midday, the petitions were done. Silviana stretched, feeling the stiffness in her back from sitting so long. "Lunch?" suggested Melvin, now captain of the palace guard. He had come a long way from being a warrior slave, demonstrating strength for a princess's amusement. "Please, and send someone to find Patty. I want to discuss the new weapons design he mentioned." Lunch was informal, taken in the garden where she had once learned the shadow dance. Patty, now the empire's chief craftsman, brought sketches and prototypes of improved bows and arrows. They discussed the balance of power and accuracy, the tension of strings, the weight of arrowheads. "You could make this more efficient with modern materials," Patty suggested. "I know, but there is value in keeping some things traditional. These weapons require skill, practice, dedication. They cannot be mass-produced or given to untrained soldiers. That is a feature, not a flaw. As you say, Your Majesty. And stop calling me that when we are alone. I am Silviana. You knew me before I was Empress. I knew a 10-year-old girl pointing at a broken slave while everyone laughed. That girl had courage. The Empress has wisdom. Both deserve respect. Silviana felt her cheeks warm. You are going to make me insufferable with all this praise. Then I will stop. For now. The afternoon brought more work, council meetings, budget reviews, a dispute between two provincial governors that required careful negotiation. By the time evening fell, Silviana was exhausted but satisfied. This was what ruling meant. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but steady, unglamorous work. She found Tristan and Rosalie in the observatory looking at star charts. They stood close together, their hands not quite touching, but clearly wanting to. Silviana smiled and quietly backed away, giving them privacy. In her own chambers, she changed into comfortable sleeping clothes and sat by the window, looking out at the city. It was beautiful at night, all lights and life and possibility. Her city, her responsibility, her home. A knock at the door. Tristan entered, looking slightly embarrassed. I wanted to say good night. You have not done that since I was 10. I am feeling nostalgic. Humor me. She patted the seat beside her. He sat, and they looked out at the city together. Rosalie is wonderful, Silviana said. She is. You should pursue her. I am pursuing her. Slowly. Carefully. You have been careful for 16 years. Perhaps it is time to be reckless. Reckless got me enslaved and tortured for 6 years. Reckless also got you a daughter and an empire. I would say the odds are in favor of reckless. He laughed quietly. When did you become so wise? I already told you. I had an excellent teacher. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I am glad you are happy, father. You deserve it. So do you, daughter. So do you. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. In the distance, ships rose and fell from the spaceport, carrying people and goods across the empire. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and clear. Stars filled the sky, countless and brilliant. Do you ever regret it? Silviana asked quietly. Staying when you could have run? Enduring everything you endured? Every day, Tristan said honestly, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. You are my daughter. Protecting you is not a burden, it is a privilege. Even when I am insufferable, especially then. She smiled and closed her eyes, feeling safe and loved and home. The frightened child who had crawled through ventilation shafts was gone. The broken slave who had pretended for 6 years was gone. In their place were two people who had survived impossible odds and built something beautiful from the wreckage. The empire would continue. Challenges would come. There would be setbacks and struggles and moments of doubt. But they would face them together, father and daughter, protector and protected, two halves of one unbreakable whole. And somewhere in a museum, a small blue dragon with button eyes stood silent, witness to the truth that had changed everything. That love in the end was always stronger than power. That courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to protect what mattered most, and that sometimes the most broken things could hold the most precious treasures. Silviana fell asleep in the chair, still leaning against her father's shoulder. Tristan carried her to bed, tucking her in as he had done when she was small, before everything changed, before he became nobody. He placed Timothy beside her, the worn dragon standing guard as he always had. Sleep well, little star, he whispered. Tomorrow we build the future. Tonight, rest. He left quietly, closing the door behind him. In the hallway, Rosalie waited, patient and understanding. Is she all right? She is exhausted, but she is strong. She will be fine. She is lucky to have you. I am lucky to have her. She saved my life in every way that matters. Rosalie took his hand, and this time he did not pull away. They walked together through the quiet palace, talking softly, learning each other. The future was uncertain, as it always was, but the present was good, and that was enough. In the throne room, empty now of petitioners and advisors, moonlight streamed through the high windows. The throne itself was simple, made of stone and metal, unadorned except for the seal of the empire. It had seen tyrants and heroes, murderers and saviors. Now it belonged to a 16-year-old girl who went barefoot and fixed machines and had learned to survive when survival should have been impossible. But survival was not the same as acceptance. 3 months after Spensep's execution, the first real challenge came from the outer provinces. A governor named Rayner, who had served under the old regime, sent word that he was seceding. He claimed that a half-breed child had no legitimate right to rule, that the Council of Elders had been coerced, that the execution of Spensep was murder dressed up as justice. The message arrived during breakfast. Silviana read it twice, then set it down carefully beside her plate. "How many troops does he have?" she asked Melvin, who had delivered the message. 15,000. Maybe more if other provinces join him. Will they? 3 other governors are watching to see how you respond. If you show weakness, they will follow Rayner. If you crush him, they will stay loyal. Tristan, sitting across the table, was already thinking tactically. We have 12,000 in the capital, another 8,000 scattered across loyal provinces. We could gather them, but it would take weeks. We do not have weeks, Silviana said. Rayner is testing me. Every day I delay is a day he can recruit more support. She stood pacing. I need to go there myself. Absolutely not, Tristan said flatly. That is exactly what he wants. To capture you, to use you as a hostage or worse. If I send an army, I look like a tyrant using force to suppress dissent. If I go myself, I show courage. I show I am not afraid of my own people. You will show you are a fool who walked into a trap. They stared at each other across the table. This was not the first time they had disagreed, and it would not be the last. But this disagreement felt different, weighted with real consequence. What if we split the difference? Rosalie suggested. Everyone turned to look at her. She had been quiet until now, listening. Silviana goes, but not alone and not with an army. She takes a small group. Elite fighters. People she trusts absolutely. It shows confidence without threatening force. That is still dangerous, Tristan objected. Everything is dangerous, Silviana said. This is the reality of ruling. I can hide behind walls and armies, or I can face challenges directly. Mother never hid. Neither will I. In the end, they compromised. Silviana would travel to Rayner's province with a group of 20. Tristan, Melvin, Patty, and 17 hand-picked warriors. No visible weapons beyond what travelers might carry. No banners or ceremony. They would arrive as guests, not conquerors. The journey took 5 days by ship, crossing mountains and forests that looked alien to Silviana, despite being part of her empire. She had never left the capital before. Every landscape was new, every settlement a revelation. She saw how the common people lived, the freed slaves building new lives, the tension between those who embraced change and those who resented it. Rayner's fortress sat on a cliff overlooking a turbulent river. It was ancient, built from local stone that seemed to grow from the rock itself. Guards lined the walls, weapons visible. As Silviana's ship approached, she could see faces watching from windows and battlements. This is a mistake, Tristan muttered for the 10th time. Noted, Silviana replied. They docked at the fortress pier. A delegation waited, led by Rayner himself. He was an older man, his blue-gray skin weathered by years of military service. His eyes were hard and calculating. Your Majesty, he said, the title sounding like an insult. You honor us with your presence. Governor Rayner, I received your message. I thought it best to discuss your concerns in person. How civilized. Please come inside. We have much to discuss. The fortress interior was sparse and military. No luxury, no decoration, just stone and function. Rayner led them to a large hall where his officers waited. Silviana counted at least 50 armed men in the room. Her own group was outnumbered more than 2 to 1. You were brave to come, Rayner said, gesturing to a chair. Or foolish. I have not yet decided which. Perhaps both, Silviana said, remaining standing. Bravery and foolishness often look the same from the outside. It is the intent that matters. Then let us speak of intent. You executed the regent. You abolished slavery. You have turned the empire upside down in 5 years. My question is simple. Why should we follow you? Because the alternative is chaos and civil war. That is a reason to fear you, not follow you. Silviana walked closer to him, ignoring the way his officers shifted, hands moving toward weapons. You served under Spencep. You followed his orders. You enforced his laws. When slaves were beaten or killed, you did nothing. When the innocent suffered, you looked away. You tell me you want legitimate rule, but what you really want is the old system where you had power and privilege. Raynor's face darkened. Careful, child. You are in my fortress, surrounded by my men. Yes, and you are in your fortress, afraid of a 16-year-old girl who came here with 20 people. She let that sink in. If you wanted to kill me, you could, but you invited me here to talk. That means you are uncertain. You are testing to see if I am weak or strong, foolish or wise. So let me answer that question. She turned to address the entire room, not just Raynor. I am my mother's daughter. Sofina was murdered by her own brother for loving a human and refusing to bow to his ambitions. I am my father's daughter. Tristan endured 6 years of slavery, torture, and humiliation to protect me. I carry both their strengths and both their stubbornness. I will not back down. I will not compromise on the principles they died to protect. But I will listen. I will hear your grievances. And if they are just, I will address them. Pretty words, one of Raynor's officers said, but words do not feed soldiers or maintain order. You are right. Actions do. Silviana looked directly at the officer. You are concerned about the economic impact of abolishing slavery. You believe the empire's productivity has suffered. You want concrete solutions, not idealism. The officer looked surprised that she had guessed his concern so precisely. I have brought economic projections, Silviana continued. Freed slaves working for wages are more productive than enslaved ones working under threat. They innovate. They take ownership of their work. In the capital, productivity is up 12% in 5 years. Crime is down. Tax revenues are higher. I can prove this. With numbers and facts, not just philosophy. She spent the next 2 hours presenting data, answering questions, engaging with their concerns directly. Some officers remained hostile, but others began to listen. Even Raynor looked less certain of his rebellion. Finally, as evening fell, Silviana made her proposal. You can secede. You can take your provinces and try to maintain the old ways. But you will be isolated, surrounded by an empire that is changing. Your young people will leave for opportunities elsewhere. Your economy will stagnate. Or you can stay. You can work within the system to shape these changes. You can prove that the old military virtues of discipline and loyalty still have value in the new empire. The choice is yours. Raynor studied her for a long moment. You are young. I am. You are inexperienced. In some things, yes. But you are not weak. He stood and walked to a window, looking out at the darkening sky. Spencep was strong, but he was cruel. He ruled through fear. You rule through something else. I am not sure what to call it. Respect, Tristan said quietly from his position by the door. She rules through respect. She earns it rather than demanding it. Raynor turned to look at him. The broken slave who was not broken. I have heard stories about you, Tristan. They say you killed 30 men the night Spencep died. 27. Precision matters. And you serve her willingly? I serve her because she is worth serving. Because she is building something better than what came before. Because she is my daughter, and I will follow her into whatever hell needs walking through. Raynor looked between them, then at his officers, then back at Silviana. I want concessions. Name them. Military autonomy and border defense. My province has always handled its own security. I want that to continue. Granted, provided your forces integrate with imperial standards for equipment and training. Economic subsidies during the transition period. My industries are struggling. 3 years of subsidies decreasing annually. After that, you must be self-sufficient. And representation. I want a voice in the Council of Elders. Every province gets representation. That was already in the reforms. Raynor nodded slowly. Then we have an agreement. I will remain loyal to the empire, But I will watch you, Empress. If you fail, if you prove too weak to hold this together, I will not hesitate to act. I would expect nothing less. A governor who does not watch his ruler carefully is not doing his job. They sealed the agreement formally, with documents and witnesses. That night, Silviana and her group were given rooms in the fortress. Tristan checked every inch of their quarters for threats before allowing anyone to rest. That was reckless, he said when they were alone. It worked. This time, what about next time? What about the governor after Rainer? Then I will go there too, and the one after that. I will go wherever I need to go to hold this empire together. She sat on the bed, suddenly exhausted. I know you want to protect me, but you cannot protect me from everything. Sometimes the only way forward is through danger. I know. That does not mean I have to like it. She smiled. Noted. They returned to the capital to find more challenges waiting. A trade dispute with a neighboring system, a protest from traditionalists who wanted the old ways restored, a proposal for educational reform that was dividing the council. Silviana addressed each issue with the same approach she had used with Rainer. Listen, engage, find common ground where possible, stand firm on principles when necessary. It was exhausting work, made harder by her age. Many still saw her as a child, dismissed her opinions, tried to manipulate or control her. But she had been trained by the best. Tristan had taught her to read people, to see through deception, to identify weak points in arguments and defenses. She used every tool at her disposal, and slowly, grudgingly, the empire began to accept her rule not just as legitimate, but as effective. 6 months after the confrontation with Rainer, an unexpected visitor arrived. A ship from a distant system claiming to represent a coalition of free worlds. The ambassador was a woman named Alicia, young and intense, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. We have been watching your empire with interest, Alicia said during the formal reception. The abolition of slavery, the reforms, the new policies. You are attempting something remarkable. Attempting, Silviana noted, not yet succeeding. Succeeding enough that others have noticed. We represent worlds that broke away from larger empires to form their own coalition. We believe in self-determination, in freedom, in cooperation rather than domination. We would like to propose an alliance. This was unexpected. The empire had always been isolated, maintaining its independence through strength and strategic location. An alliance would change everything. What kind of alliance? Silviana asked carefully. Trade, mutual defense, cultural exchange. We share technology and knowledge. We support each other against external threats, but each world maintains its sovereignty. No empire, no subjugation. The Council of Elders debated the proposal for weeks. Some saw opportunity, others saw threat. Tristan remained skeptical, pointing out that alliances could become traps, that dependence on others was its own form of weakness. But Silviana saw something different. She saw a chance to break the cycle of empire and rebellion, of dominance and resistance. She saw a possibility that her mother had died for and her father had sacrificed for. We will join your coalition, she announced finally, but on specific terms. We will share technology, but not weapons. We will engage in trade, but not dependence. We will offer mutual defense, but maintain our own military. We will cooperate, but never surrender sovereignty. Alicia smiled. Those are exactly the terms we hoped you would propose. Welcome to the Coalition of Free Worlds, Empress Silviana. You are the youngest member we have ever accepted. I hope you will prove worthy of the faith we are placing in you. I hope so too. The alliance changed everything. New technologies flowed into the empire. New ideas, new perspectives. Silviana established exchange programs, sending young people from her empire to study in other worlds and welcoming students in return. The capital became a hub of innovation and cultural mixing. But not everyone was pleased. Norman, one of the old scholars who had been offered as a potential father during the humiliation ceremony 6 years ago, approached Silviana one day with concerns. Your Majesty, I must speak plainly. This alliance is diluting our culture. Foreign ideas are corrupting our traditions. We are losing what makes us unique. Or we are gaining what makes us better, Silviana countered. Culture that cannot adapt is culture that dies. We preserve what is valuable and release what is not. And who decides what is valuable? All of us together. That is what it means to be part of something larger than ourselves. Norman left unsatisfied, and Silviana knew she had made an enemy. But she had learned from her uncle's rule that you could not please everyone. The goal was not universal approval, but effective governance. Some would always resist change. The question was whether they would resist peacefully or violently. The answer came 3 months later when a bomb exploded in the Central Market. 23 people died. Dozens more were injured. The explosion was designed to cause maximum civilian casualties, to create terror and chaos. Silviana arrived at the scene within an hour, still wearing her informal clothes, her feet bare as always. She walked through the wreckage, helping pull survivors from the rubble, organizing medical care, refusing to leave until every injured person had been attended to. "This is what your reforms have brought us," someone shouted from the crowd. "Death and destruction. The old ways kept us safe." "The old ways kept you enslaved," Silviana shot back. "The old ways let tyrants murder princesses and hunt children. Do not speak to me of safety when you would trade freedom for the illusion of security." The investigation revealed that Norman had organized the attack with the help of other traditionalists. They had hoped to turn the people against the reforms, to create enough chaos that the military would demand a return to authoritarian rule. Instead, the attack unified the empire. People from all backgrounds came together to rebuild the market. Freed slaves and former masters worked side by side clearing debris. The coalition sent aid and assistance. Even Rayner, the skeptical governor, sent troops to help maintain order and provide security. Norman and his co-conspirators were caught within a week. They stood trial before the Council of Elders, claiming they had acted to save the empire from corruption. "You acted to save your own privilege," Silviana said when she testified. "You cared nothing for the empire or its people. You cared only that you were losing power and influence. 23 innocent people died because you could not accept change. The council found them guilty. The sentence was exile, not execution." Silviana had argued against the death penalty, insisting that the empire should show it had moved beyond solving problems through violence when other options existed. "They murdered 23 people," Melvin had argued. "They deserve death. And if we kill them, we prove that killing is still our answer to problems. We prove that violence is still the foundation of power. I want to build something different. I want to show that justice can exist without revenge." The decision was controversial. Many thought she was too soft, but Tristan supported her, and his voice carried weight. "My daughter is trying to break a cycle that has repeated for generations," he told the council. "Tyrant, rebellion, new tyrant, new rebellion. If we are to truly change, we must change how we respond to those who challenge us. Exile removes the threat without creating martyrs or reinforcing the idea that power flows from the blade." Norman and his co-conspirators were sent to a remote colony world, given resources to survive but cut off from the empire permanently. As they left, Norman looked at Silviana one last time. "You are naive," he said. "You think you can change the nature of power. You cannot. Eventually, you will face a choice between your ideals and your survival. When that day comes, you will choose survival, and you will become everything you despise." "Perhaps," Silviana said, "or perhaps I will prove that there is another way. I guess we will both have to wait to find out." As the ship carrying the exiles lifted off, Silviana felt Tristan's hand on her shoulder. "Doubt?" he asked quietly. "Always. Every decision carries doubt. The question is whether the doubt paralyzes you or pushes you to be better. And which is it for you? I am still standing, am I not?" He smiled. "Yes, you are still standing." The years continued to pass. Silviana grew from 16 to 17 to 18. Her rule became more confident, more assured. The empire stabilized. The reforms took root. The coalition grew stronger. Tristan and Rosalie married in a simple ceremony that Silviana presided over, giving her father the happiness he had delayed for so long. On Silviana's 18th birthday, the Council of Elders formally recognized her as empress in her own right. No longer a child ruler, but an adult leader. The ceremony was held in the throne room with representatives from across the empire and the coalition in attendance. Silviana wore a dress of deep blue, the color of her human eyes, of her father's heritage, of the sky over the capital on clear days. She walked barefoot down the aisle, as her mother had loved to do. When she reached the throne, she did not sit immediately but turned to address the assembled crowd. 8 years ago, I was a frightened 10-year-old girl forced to choose a father from among slaves. I chose the one who looked weakest because I knew he was strongest. I chose the one everyone laughed at because I saw what they could not. Today I am 18. I am empress not because of bloodline or destiny, but because I chose to be. Because I worked for it. Because I earned it. She looked at Tristan, standing proud in his uniform as first shield. My father taught me that strength is not about domination. It is about endurance, about protecting what matters, about standing firm when everything tells you to fall. She looked at Rosalie, now ambassador to the coalition. My stepmother taught me that change is not weakness. It is evolution. It is how we survive and grow. She looked at the council, at Melvin and Patty, and all the others who had supported her. My advisors taught me that wisdom is not about having all the answers. It is about asking the right questions and listening to those who know better. Finally, she looked at the crowd, at the diverse faces representing the new empire she was building. And you, my people, taught me that an empire is not defined by its ruler, but by those who choose to be part of it. You chose to stay when you could have left. You chose to build when you could have destroyed. You chose hope when fear would have been easier. She sat on the throne, and for the first time it did not feel too large for her. It felt exactly right. I am Silviana, daughter of Sophina and Tristan, empress of the unified worlds. I will rule with wisdom, with strength, with compassion, and with the courage to change when change is needed. This I swear to you. The crowd erupted in cheers, not the forced applause of subjects afraid to displease a tyrant, but genuine celebration. The empire had found its footing. The future was uncertain, as it always was, but for now, in this moment, they had hope. That night, after the ceremonies and celebrations, Silviana found herself alone in the museum, standing before the glass case that held Timothy. The worn blue dragon looked back at her with his button eyes unchanged by the years. We did it, she whispered. We survived. We built something worth keeping. Mother would be proud. I hope she would be proud. She placed her hand on the glass, and for a moment she could almost feel the small, frightened child she had been, hiding in darkness, trusting a stranger because he had kind eyes. That child was still part of her, would always be part of her. But she was no longer defined by fear or survival. She was defined by what she had chosen to become. The Empress, Dua, the architect of change, the bridge between worlds, the daughter who had kept the promises her parents had died to protect. She was Silviana, and she was exactly where she belonged.